Jesus asked some unusual questions. Do you want to be made well? This was one of them. What would you say if you heard this question? Do you want to be made well? Let's talk about the context of this question that Jesus asked in John chapter 5. We learn at the beginning of this chapter that Jesus is heading on to the city of Jerusalem for a festival of the Jews. This was common in Jesus' day, that as the high holy season and the days came, Jesus would go to the city to celebrate, to remember, to practice the things that were prescribed in Scripture as a way to be in line with God. When Jesus was there, John tells us that he came to a pool that was just outside the city. Commentators will tell us that at this pool there were magical qualities, that one time a year, tradition said, the Spirit of God would descend, would stir the waters, and when the water was stirred, the first person to touch the water would be healed. We learn that there was a man who was sitting by the sea, by this pool, for 37 years. Now, the only reason for sitting by a pool that long with that tradition and that opportunity would be that you would receive healing. We learn that the man is paralyzed. He's unable to walk and move by himself. He's at the mercy of those who are around him to help him move from place to place, to bring him food or take him to shelter, to give him opportunity to live a full and complete life. Jesus comes to the man and seems to seek him out, seems to come to him. And he says to the man, "Do you want to be made well?" Now, the man's response is interesting, but before we get to that response, imagine Jesus coming to you. Now, the reason he came to the man is because he saw that there was something not right in his life. He knew that something wasn't quite going the way it should. There was pain, there was difficulty, there was inability in his life. I wonder, do you experience any of these things? Do you have pain? Do you have difficulty? Is there something that's not quite working right in your life? How is it that you've tried to deal with these things? Maybe it's been 37 years that you've been waiting for the waters to be stirred. Maybe it's only been a day, a week, or maybe this last year just hasn't worked well. Jesus is coming, asking the same question. Do you want to be made well? Now let's hear about this man. When Jesus came to him and asked that critical question, do you want to be made well? The man didn't answer right away, or at least he didn't answer the way you and I would expect. If Jesus asked us that, I would raise my hand quickly and say, of course I want to be made well. What can you do to help this happen? The man said, there's no one to move me to the water when it is stirred. That is a peculiar answer. There's no one to take me to the water. There's always been people around, it seems that he says, to help me with food and shelter and clothing and being clean and all these things. But when the water stirred, there seems to be no one around. He seems to think that the only way that he can be made well is that one day a year, that moment that the water is stirred. He's never quite the first person there. Now, this raises some questions about why he's waiting so long. Now, we don't know if it is a prescribed time, a day, a date, a time that it comes, that the water is stirred. But if it was, you would imagine that he'd be setting a clock. He would be setting a reminder that he would be so close to the water that he would be the first. But he doesn't. So it raises the question, why does he stay in this state for 37 years? My friends, the question that this raises for me is, why is it that we continue in our dysfunction? Why is it that we continue in our pain? When there is a solution, there is a change that is capable and able if we would just allow Jesus to come and ask us that question. But not only ask the question, but to do the work in our life that would make us well. Now, there's work to be done on your part, on my part, to identify those places where things are not well and to take them to Jesus. It is my invitation for you today is to take this question seriously as you look at the aspects and the different parts of your life, to ask yourselves, do you want to be made well? And if so, take that to Jesus. As the waters get stirred in your life and you begin to touch those waters, may you understand the power of grace, the power of God's love to change, transform, and allow us to be healthy, happy, and whole. Yes, there are many things that are not well in our world. There are many things that are not well in your life and in my life. But with Jesus, it is possible to be made well. If you want to hear more about this story, I invite you to look at John chapter 5, beginning in the first verse. I know you will be touched. I know you will be inspired, and I know you will be instructed in the work of God. I hope this blesses you today, and I wish God's greatest blessing on you as you lean into him and as he makes you well.